Have some fun talking some NFL. Talk a little Cam Jordan. We'll still get to his numbers like I wanted to, at least the value that Cam Jordan brings you each and every game. We'll end the hour with that. But right now, I wanted to welcome in good friend of the program, a man whose hair swoop is only rivaled by '07 T-Bob. That is my guy, Larry Holder of The Athletic. Larry, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining us today.
What's up, T-Bob? And yeah, my hair, though, look, I have decided to keep it a little less swooshy than I would maybe like 5 years ago. You know, once you hit 40, you try to like do something different and try to be a grown-up because I've got gray hairs and things like that now. So it's not as swooshish, but I try as much as I can to kind of keep that swoosh alive.
And I should have texted you for a new picture because all of our guests are getting mad at the pictures we're using, but you still very much have the soup going on in the one that we're using, so it's all good. What about speaking of gray hair? Can you confirm, does Jeff Duncan purposely gray the sides, or maybe he just colors the top while just allowing the sides to gray?
Like it's almost like he has wings, right? On those sides, it's like he's a feathered eagle or something. I don't know, but yeah, that is something that's hard to do. Like that's a reverse Paulie Walnut.
Yeah,
right?
it's a little convenient too, because like there's nothing more august looking than like the older gentleman who still looks young, but he's got the gray temples. Like it just kind of gives off a wise sort of vibe. I have to imagine there's some just for men going on in the top. If you could actually research that maybe for your next piece, Larry, that would be great.
I'm sure people would be flooding to The Athletic to know that, and maybe use Jeff as like a pinata because typically he's sometimes ruffled some feathers among Saints fans.
Well, speaking of your work on The Athletic, you have a great article up today titled, and by the way, sign up at theathletic.com. Selfishly, you can use the sign up code /HoldThatPodcast if you want to help me and Brody Miller out. But it is titled "Busting the Myths Surrounding the Saints Pass Rush the Past 3 Years." And I think there's a few myths, right? I think that people think that the Saints consistently struggle. I think that people think that Marcus Davenport has been a bust up to this point. What do you say when you hear those narratives bandied about?
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I looked into it, and I didn't totally know what I was going to get into when I did the research, but like I know people unjustly attack Marcus Davenport, and I looked at him specifically, and you keep hearing all offseason, well, the Saints need to improve their pass rush, even though they're top 5 in the league in like every category you want to be top 5 in the league in, essentially. And then you look at specifically someone like Marcus Davenport, and people are clamoring for Everson Griffin and Jadeveon Clowney. And I just put the numbers up and let it speak for itself. I mean, look, Marcus Davenport took far fewer snaps than both Everson Griffin and Jadeveon Clowney. He had twice as many sacks as Clowney. He had 2 fewer than Griffin. Again, Marcus Davenport had 6 sacks. Look, his average time to sack on his sacks was less than 4 seconds. Just in kind of
can you give us some like context? Yeah, give us like some context there, because that's a new number that I'm seeing a lot of this offseason. Average time to sack.
Yeah, he's one of the better defensive ends in the league, and I'll just put it in comparison to say Everson Griffin and Jadeveon Clowney. So Marcus Davenport came in 3.95. I mean, that's a really good rate, like one of the better rates in the NFL. Everson Griffin, his average time to a sack is 4.62 seconds.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and then Jadeveon Clowney's is 4.76 seconds. And look, you're right. And so Marcus Davenport is getting to the quarterback quickly. Also, a metric that I looked at comparing him to those two guys specifically, quarterback hit percentage. So how many times do you hit the quarterback divided by how many times you rush the quarterback? Marcus Davenport's average, 4.41%. Everson Griffin, 4.35. Jadeveon Clowney, 3.09. So
wow.
I want to know why people are hell-bent on wanting to diminish Davenport and yet trying to prop up
names
like Everson Griffin and Jadeveon Clowney.
No, I mean, it's a great point because I've fallen into this trap. We got the Clowney hype train rolling here. I got the Everson Griffin hype train rolling here. I've remained on that hype train. Hearing that about Davenport is shocking. So what do you think is holding Davenport back then? Is it the injuries? Does he just need to have a year where he obviously he needs to stay healthy, but then does he just need the more traditional metrics, like just to stack sacks to make people believe in him?
I think it's the sacks for sure. And also injuries play a part in that. And he's not an every down type of guy. Maybe Griffin and Clowney are a little bit more of an every down type of guy. And look, I'll just put it to you this way. People can look at Griffin and say, wow, he took 506 pass rush snaps in 2019. Marcus Davenport only had 307. Part of that is that he's not an every down guy. And so if you think it's a rundown and, they pass, he's not in there necessarily as a pass rusher. And also you look at the injuries. And I think that's part of it. And also he just gets an unfair knock because everyone expects him to be J.J. Watt because they gave up an additional first-round pick to go get him. So he is definitely someone who year 3, people are going to be looking at him with a close eye, and they always will. It's like they always looked at Andres Pete in a close eye because he was a first-round pick. And Marcus Davenport's the same way. And yet we don't bag on Sheldon Rankins as much as we do Davenport, and yet Sheldon Rankins was drafted actually higher than Marcus Davenport, and yet has been more injury-riddled. He's almost just like, well, okay, these are injuries, and you hope you get some better expectations for him. But you're not hearing the drum beating for Rankins as much as you do on Davenport.
So what you're saying is that when you actually look at all these numbers together and you look at Davenport and Rankins, just the whole crew, Cam Jordan, everybody, are the Saints a top 10 pass rush in the NFL?
Oh, absolutely. Look, all you got to do is look at the last 3 years and you go to sacks per game, average time to sack a quarterback, pressures per game, quarterback hits percentage per game. Every year the past 3 years, they've improved.
Wow.
So much so where they are number 2 in the league in average time to sack a quarterback. That's at 4.53 seconds. That includes guys like Shy Tuttle get into the quarterback quickly, the interior guys. And, pressures per game. The Saints were tied for first in the NFL last year. Quarterback hit percentage, they were 7th in the NFL.
Damn.
In sacks per game, they were tied for third. So
they might be like a top 5 pass rush, arguably.
Right, exactly. And it's I think just people kind of have convenient memories. They latch on to one game and say, oh my gosh, wow, they struggled this game, they need to be better. Well, every team probably wants to sack the quarterback every play. I mean, that's just not possible. So, if you look at, and I broke down the defensive line, each player among all those stats, each seasons individually, and you can see the uptick in production from either Cam Jordan and other players down the line, including Trey Henderson. Look, he improved a lot last year, and that's someone who, in his final year of his rookie contract, you need him to be, again, a viable number 3 defensive end for this roster.
Yeah, Trey Henderson just a couple of years ago with an unreal average time to sack at 3.58. So he has a role to he definitely has a role. Okay, last question here, Larry. You mentioned they've improved each of the last 3 years. They've arguably made themselves into a top 5 NFL pass rush. So, the better you get, right, the smaller the margins get to improve. What needs to happen this season if they're going to continue that streak and rank even higher in 2020?
I said quit bagging on Davenport, but you want Davenport to become an 8-10 sack guy. If you go back to when you had Cam Jordan and Junior Gillette, 2 double-digit sack guys in one season, that would be a big help. Rankins being healthy, if he's completely healthy, look, if he's 2018 Rankins, 8 sacks, he was a big part of an uptick in 2018. If you get both of those guys back being productive, that you can really disrupt some things. So, again, it comes back to the first-round picks, but they have the numbers to show that they're capable of doing it. They just need to sustain it.
Absolutely love it. Larry Holder, catch his work at theathletic.com. My favorite sports site, no ads, no BS, super cheap, especially if you use a sign-up code. Larry, thank you so much. Anything else you want to tell the people? Anything you're pushing, got coming out or anything?
Look, I think you and some other people inspired me. I'm trying to look to see if this is the best Saints roster heading into a season that we've ever seen. I know you and Jordy have asked me about this. Other people have asked me. So I'm kind of doing a metric-based research. So that's going to be coming out in the next few days. It's going to take me a minute
Yeah,
to go through some of this. So be on the lookout, theathletic.com/New Orleans for that.
Larry, thank you so much. At Larry Holder on Twitter. He's the man. You have a great day. Also, because I got the Duncan Holder podcast. They do great work covering your New Orleans Saints. When we get back, talk a little more Cam Jordan, wrap up the show. OTBOT.
OTB.